Hey guys, this is God of Politics. I'm going to a brand new video, but before we get started with this video, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. Those are linked down in the description. But in today's video, I do want to make a video showing how off the polls were in each individual state. Now this is something I've been wanting to do for quite a while, and I thought that now was as good a time as any. So I've split this up into the polling errors of 0 to 2 points, 2 to 5 points, 5 to 10 points, and 10 plus points. And you will see that there are a number of states that did have polls off by more than 10 percentage points. But I do consider 0 to 2 points to be any good. I think that anything within 2 points of the actual margin is a good poll. 2 to 5 is not very good. I mean, it's hard to make an excuse for a poll that is, 5 points off, but that is not as bad as 5 to 10 points, which is also very bad, but you will see a number of those states being 5 to 10 points off, and then, there's a number of states that are 10 points off, and it's just ridiculous that these polls are even allowed to do polls in these places anymore when they're producing results that are less accurate than you walking on the street and asking people who they're going to vote for. And that's, one of the most ridiculous things that we're seeing in this election is that the polls were just completely off in a number of states. So I'm going to be going state by state. Now, first of all, the national polls, which showed Biden ahead by 8.4 percentage points, he ended up winning by 4.5 percentage points. So that is an error of 3.9 percentage points, which is not very good. I mean, it would be in the margin of 2 to 5 percentage points. I don't have a national thing to fill out here, but the national polls were not very good. Now let's go state by state. First of all, Alabama, the polls showed Trump up by 19.5 percentage points, and he ended up winning by 25.4 percentage points. So that is a 5 to 10 point polling error, which would put it in that column. Alaska showed Trump winning by 7.7 percentage points. He ended up winning by 10 percentage points. That's also going to go at the first state. He's going to go into the 2 to 5 point column. The next state is the state of Arizona, which showed Biden winning by 2.6 percentage points. He ended up winning by 0.3 percentage points. So that's also going to the 2 to 5 point column. This you'll see is one of the more accurate swing states, and yet it was still over 2 percentage points off. Arkansas was showing Trump up by 22.8 percentage points. He ended up winning it by 27.6 percentage points there. So 27.6 percentage points versus 22.8 percentage points is 27.6 percentage points is going to be 4.8 percentage points off. So that's going to go in that column. The next state I'm going to be looking at over here is the state of California, where the polls showed Biden up 29.2 percentage points, and he actually ended up winning by 29.2 percentage points. So the polls were actually spot on in the state of California. So that is one thing to actually for the polls to be proud of. But again, it's California. It's a safe blue state. Colorado showed Biden up 12.5 percentage points. He ended up winning by 13.5 percentage points. But the polls there were very good as well. Generally, the polls in Colorado have underestimated Democrats, so it's not a surprise that the polls were more accurate this time, even though they did underestimate Joe Biden by just a little bit. Connecticut showing Biden up by 26.3 percentage points, and Biden won Connecticut by 20 percentage points, so that is going to be an over 5% polling error from the state of Connecticut. I mean, people don't notice these polling errors because they're in safe states, but they are very big polling errors. 4.3 percentage points in Delaware. I know Biden won Delaware by exactly 20 percentage points, so that's going to go into the 2 to 5 percentage point error. DC, I did check the numbers just before this because it doesn't have it on the New York Times, at least from what I can see, but it is in the 2 to 5 point polling error, which isn't too bad because it is DC. It's hard to get these margins for states that are this lopsided. Florida showing Biden up by 2.5 percentage points when he actually won. Trump actually won by 3.2 percentage points. That's just an abysmal polling error that goes into the 5 to 10 percentage point polling error column. So the next state is the state of Georgia, which showed Biden up by 1.2 percentage points, and he actually did end up winning, if we go over here, by 0.34 percentage points. So the polls there were actually very, very accurate in the state of Georgia, the most accurate of any swing state, as you will see here. Hawaii next showing Biden up by 34.3 percentage points. If we go down all the way here to Hawaii, showing him up by 29.4 percentage points, so 29.4 percentage points versus 30. So it just makes it into the 2 to 5 polling error, but it was a 4.9% polling error. The next is the state of Idaho, which showed Trump up 18.1 percentage points. Trump ended up winning the state by 30.7 percentage points. So that is an over 10% polling error, which is just absolutely abysmal. Illinois showed Biden up 16 percentage points. He actually only won by a margin of 17 percentage points. So the polls actually did underestimate him in Illinois, and the polls were actually generally quite accurate there. Indiana showed Trump up 10.8 percentage points. Trump actually ended up winning the state by 16 percentage points. That is an over 5% polling error from another one of the Rust Belt states, which we'll see many of them later on. Trump plus 1.3 in Iowa. That's absolutely abysmal because he ended up winning it by 8.2 percentage points. So, you go from 1.3 to 8.2, you're getting a polling error that's upwards of 7 percentage points almost. And, that's pretty ridiculous. Kansas, 12.9 percentage points. Trump actually won Kansas by a margin of 14.6 percentage points. So the polls weren't too bad there, 14.6 percentage points. So that actually does go into the 0 to 2 point polling error. So the polls were actually quite good in Kansas, although they did underestimate Donald Trump. Kentucky, this is another terrible one, 15.7 percentage points. He actually ended up winning the state by 25.9 percentage points. So that actually would just go into the plus 10 polling error. Another terrible polling state for polling in general. Louisiana, Trump plus 20.6. The polls, he actually only won it by 18.6 percentage points. So the polls were, it does say 2 percentage points, so I will put that into the 2 to 5 point percentage column, but the polls actually were decent in Louisiana. Maine, here we have the district, so Maine plus 13 at the presidential level. That is going to go into the 2 to 5 point polling error. As for Maine's first district, if we go to Maine's first district, 20.5 percentage points. Biden ended up winning Maine's first district by a margin of 23.1 percentage points. So 23.1 percentage points is going to go into the 2 to 5 point polling error. And then here we go as we go to Maine's second district, showing Biden winning by 2.8 percentage points when Trump actually ended up winning by 7.9 percentage points. So that is an over 10 point polling error in Maine's second district, which I did predict that the polls would be off, but not by that much. Maryland, Biden plus 31.4. If we do go over here to the state of Maryland, we can see that Biden won the state of Maryland by 33.2 percentage points. So the polls were generally quite accurate there as well. So I will put that in the 0 to 2 point column. Massachusetts, Biden plus 35.8. He actually ended up winning the state of Massachusetts by 33.5 percentage points. So, that's not too bad, but they did overestimate Joe Biden as they did in most of these states. Michigan, here's quite a bad one, plus 7.9 percentage points. He actually ended up winning it by 2.8 percentage points. So that's a 6.3% polling error, putting that in the yellow column, which you'll see a lot in these Rust Belt states. Minnesota is one of the states where the polls were actually not as off, but Biden won the state by just over 7 percentage points at 7.1 percentage points, and the polls showed him winning by 9.2. So that does go into the 2 to 5 point polling error. Mississippi, Trump plus. Biden's not winning Mississippi. Trump plus 15.9. He actually ended up winning it by 16.5. So the polls were accurate in the state of Mississippi as well. The next state is the state of Missouri, where the polls were terrible here, showing Trump only up by 8 percentage points. Showing Trump actually ended up winning by 15.4 percentage points. So the polls were again almost approaching 10% off in that state. Montana, the polls were absolutely abysmal here. I don't even have to look at the actual margin and know that the polls here were over 10 percentage points off. I think Trump won it by around 16 percentage points. Nebraska, Trump plus 9.7. He won it by over 20 percentage points here, just about 20 percentage points. So Nebraska at large goes into the 10 percentage point polling error. The first district, we had one poll showing Trump up 2 percentage points. He actually ended up winning it by 15. So that's another big error. Nebraska's second district, if we go to the second district, we can see that Biden was up 3.8 percentage points, and the polls actually did underestimate him here because he actually ended up winning it by, I do believe it does show here, 6.5 percentage points. So that does go into the 2 to 5% polling error, and we have no polls from Nebraska's third district, so I'm just going to leave that blank. Nevada, Biden plus 5.3. He actually ended up winning, and I know that by 2.7 percentage points. So if we do factor that in, it's going to be a 2 to 5 point polling error from the state of Nevada. Not too off, but again, not that great, especially since Nevada polls have historically underestimated Democrats. New Hampshire, 11.1 percentage points for Biden. He actually ended up winning it by around 7. He won it by 7.3 percentage points, so that is going to be a 2 to 5% polling error there in the state of New Hampshire. The next state is the state of New Jersey, showing Biden winning by 20.4 percentage points. Biden ended up winning by 16 or 15.8 percentage points. So that's, again, going to be a 2 to 5% polling error. We're seeing a lot of 2 to 5% polling errors, which I guess is something to be expected, but you can't really trust the polls when they're 4 or 5 percentage points off. That's not very consistent. Biden plus 11.7 in New Mexico. He actually ended up winning it by just around 10. So the polls were accurate in New Mexico. I guess the polls in New Mexico and Colorado are actually quite accurate. They have been historically, and they are accurate again. And Biden plus 29.4 in New York. That was not accurate at all. Biden ended up winning New York by around 23.2 percentage points. So the polls were also over 5 percentage points off in the state of New York. The next state is the state of North Carolina, showing Biden winning by 1.8 percentage points. I do know Trump won that state by 1.6 percentage points, so that's going to put it another state into the 2 to 5% polling error. The next state is the state of North Dakota, showing Trump winning by 17.3 percentage points. He actually ended up winning it by 33.3 percentage points, and that, again, is probably, I think that actually may be the worst polling error, but that's another plus 10% polling error. Ohio's another terrible one, showing Trump only winning by 0.8 percentage points. He actually won by around 8 percentage points, 8.1 percentage points, so that's another state going into the yellow column in the 5 to 10% column. Oklahoma's the next state, showing Trump up by 23 percentage points. Trump actually ended up winning the state by 33.1 percentage points. That's another 10% polling error, and you're seeing these 10% polling errors racking up because the polls were absolutely abysmal. Biden plus 21.3 in Oregon. Biden ended up winning Oregon by 16.1 percentage points. So the polls were over 5 percentage points off in the state of Oregon. Pennsylvania, as well as Biden did in Oregon, the polls were still 5% off in Trump's favor. So Pennsylvania, Biden plus 4.7. Biden ended up winning it by 1.8 percentage points. So that is going to be a 2.9 percentage point polling error, putting it in the blue column there. Not too bad, better than the other Rust Belt states, but still not good. Biden plus 30.6 in Rhode Island. Biden ended up winning Rhode Island by, if we do go over here, Biden ended up winning Rhode Island by 20.8 percentage points. If we do go over to the state of Rhode Island, 20.8 percentage points. The polls showed him winning by 30.6 percentage points, so it just makes it under 10 percentage points, but the polls were also absolutely abysmal in Rhode Island. South Carolina, Biden plus 7, or Trump, keep mixing them up. Trump plus 7.1 percentage points. He actually ended up winning it by 11.7 percentage points, so that's another 2 to 5% polling error, which, again, you're seeing a lot of them, but you're seeing a lot that are more than 2 to 5% polling errors. You know, Trump plus 15.4 in South Dakota. You won it by over 25 percentage points, 26.2 to be exact. So, again, you know, that's going to be another terrible polling state. Tennessee, 13.7% for Trump. The actual result was 23.3 percentage points. So that does just make it under 10 percentage points. Trump, you know, the polls are getting quite lucky here, being just under 10 percentage points for a number of these states. Texas, Trump plus 1.1. I know Trump won it by 5.5 percentage points, so that's going to be another 2 to 5% polling error. Generally, the polls have underestimated Democrats, but they did not this time, I guess, due to Joe Biden's underperformance of Latinos. Utah, Trump plus 9.8. You know, again, you don't even have to look at that to know that the polls here are over 10 percentage points off. Utah's a very Republican state, and the polls have always underestimated Democrats. Vermont showing Biden up by 38.7 percentage points compared to the actual results, which showed him up by 35.4 percentage points. So, again, that's going to be another 2 to 5% polling error. The polls in the Northeast and New England area were not very good. Virginia showing Biden up by 11.8 percentage points. The polls are actually quite accurate there. He won it by just over 10 percentage points. The next state is the state of Washington, showing Biden by 23 percentage points, where the polls actually showed him winning by 19.2 percentage points. So the polls were not too inaccurate there, but again, they were not very accurate. West Virginia, here's a terrible one, plus 28.6 for Trump. He actually ended up winning it by 38.9. So, you know, that's another plus 10% polling error. And then we have just a couple more states here. We have two more. First, Wisconsin, showing Biden up by 8.4 percentage points. He barely won the state. That's another 5 to 10% polling error. And then finally, the state of Wyoming, you know, ending it with just how he started it. Very bad polls, showing Trump up by 31.5 percentage points. He won it by a margin of 43.3 percentage points. So that's another 10% polling error. But as you can see, you can see all of these races, all of the states plus the districts, with the exception of Nebraska's third, did have polls in them, and they were overall quite inaccurate. Over a third of the polls were off by more than, actually, I'd say about half of the polls were off by, or not half, but approaching half, were off by more than 5 percentage points. You had about a third that were off by 2 to 5 percentage points. You had maybe just under around a quarter, which were off by 0 to 2 percentage points, as you can see over here. The pie chart, 140 is about a quarter, 538, maybe just a little bit over. A quarter of them were, I would say, accurate. A third of them were not so accurate. Another third of them were quite inaccurate, and then 46 electoral votes worth of them were very inaccurate. But there were numbers, states 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 races, 12 races, where the polls were more than 10 percentage points off. So overall, the polls were very, very terrible, as I've said before, but I did just want to show a state-by-state breakdown of all of it, because the polls were just really that bad. And you can see that in most swing states, they were bad too. The only swing states that they weren't really bad in was Georgia, and Georgia's the only swing state that was less than 2 percentage points. And one thing that they all have in common is that they all overestimated Joe Biden, and that's one of the things that the polls are going to have to fix if they want to have any credibility at all. But even the people who used to trust the polls like a religion now are starting to say that the polls are not that great. I did not trust the polls. I thought that the polls would be off. That's why I thought Trump would win states like Florida and North Carolina. But some people didn't listen, and they ended up getting their predictions wrong. Some people had the predictions wrong going the other way because they didn't trust the polls enough. And, that's the way it is. But that's why my prediction was one of the most accurate, and that's why I do believe that the predictions will be accurate in the future. But anyways, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Also, follow me on Twitter and join the Discord. There's both linked down in the description. But again, guys, thank you all for watching this video, and I will see you guys later.